Welcome back to another helpful how-to video on Discord Bot Maker with your host Herpaderp. I want to go over command parameters in this video, and I'm going to be starting this with something a little bit more complicated than normal. And this is going to be a math function, where one command will do all different type of math functions for you. Now, I already made this command to test to make sure that it worked correctly before I shared it with you guys. So that's why you see two of them in my commands list on the left. Now, to get started, what we're going to want to do is jump in by creating a check command parameters. So we're going to go to conditions, and in there should be a check parameters. What we're going to do with this is check the number of parameters, because there should be three. Your first number, the function, and then the second number. So we're going to put the number of command parameters is 3. If true, we're going to have it go to a specific command, so we're going to jump to action. We don't have any of them yet, so we're not going to fill that in. And because I like to separate my work because it looks cleaner, we're going to put in a end action sequence. However, you do not need to put that in at this point, but I recommend it. So now, after we have that, we're going to have it store the command parameters. So we're going to go into Other, and in Other, there should be a Store Command Parameters field in there somewhere. You might need to dig for it. So we're going to check that the store the command parameters, because one parameter is one word or anything separated by a space. So we're going to want the first parameter to be the numbers. So we're going to put the first parameter as number 1. And we're going to have our, let's save it as param1, because we're going to want to change it to an actual integer later. And I'll explain that later. So we're going to put param1. And we're going to need to do this for pretty much all three. So we're going to go ahead and do that 3 times. We're going to change the param number to 2, param2, and we're going to change it from param1 to param3, and so on. So now that we have these store command parameters complete, we're now going to jump into a checking variable to make sure that we actually check to make sure it is the correct value. So just because you type in a number does not mean it reads it as a number. For example, you have, let's say you work at Walmart. You have an employee ID number. Let's say that number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's 9 numbers. But if you were to, try and pull that up, it's not going to give you a math result. If you were to type that into the Walmart employee registry, it would pull up your ID number because it's reading it as an ID number, not a actual integer number. Now, what we're going to want to do is check to make sure it is a number. And if it's not, we're going to parse it into an integer. Now, I know that sounds like foreign language to a lot of people who are not code savvy, but trust me, it is a lot simpler than it sounds. So let's go ahead and get started on that. And like I said, because I like to have things separated for appearances, I'm going to put in a skip action so we can have it be separated by another end action sequence, because let's be real, if you just start adding a whole bunch of shit without doing anything to make it look nice, it's gonna get messy really quick. And after we add the end action sequence, we're going to want to do a condition to check variable. Now this check variable might sound a bit weird, but it's actually just to check to see if the parameter exists. Now if it doesn't exist, we have another type of issue. However, part of this is required just simply because the math function is finicky, but we are going to make it work. Now that we have it checked to make sure it exists, we're going to want to enter in the action run script. It will be in other stuff. Now, the command for running the script is pretty much to do anything and everything that is not normal function commands inside Discord.js, the programming language that makes Discord run for the API. Now, what we're going to want to put in here for the custom code is we're going to want it to be parse capital INT, well, capital I lowercase nt, parentheses, temp, capital VARS, parentheses, quotation marks, param1. I almost forgot what I named my parameter for a second. I apologize. And the reason why we do it with this custom code is the parse int is called parse integer. It is making that ID number into a number. This is something that the computer then registers as not being a name, as being an actual number value. And the temp variable is what we stored our first parameter in. As you can see, the next set of parentheses with the quotation mark is param1. And what we're going to want to do is store it in temp variable, and we're going to, you could call it param1 again, or you can do something different, like, well, I can't type. I normally do num1 for the first value, and then the same for the second one, but I do num2 because sometimes it's just a little bit tricky when you keep it calling it the same variable name over and over again when it's not actually the same variable. Most of the time the program's smart enough to separate the two. However, I've seen it where if you have a long string of actions, one of my commands, for example, had 8,000 lines of actions, and I had to name every single one differently because otherwise it broke, because it just could not keep track of what you were calling anymore. For something small like this, where we're probably not going to break 40 lines, you're going to be fine. But I like to practice as I preach, so like I said. Now after we finish putting in the run script and storing the variable as however you want it to be stored as, we're going to create another condition. This condition is going to be check variable type. Now what we're going to be checking is that it is actually a number. And after we have that checked for it being a number, what we're going to want to do is make sure the other parameters exist. So just like the first one, we're going to do the check variable. We're going to do param2 exists, done. And we're going to do that again. More or less, we're going to copy and paste it, but we're going to use the param3, whoop, not a space, and param3 for it. And again, we want to check to make sure it exists. Now, after we do this, we're going to want to do the same thing that we did on the other one with the run script. And that's going to allow us to change the third parameter to a number as well. And since we're pretty much doing the same thing, all we really need to do is clone this, or if you don't have the option to clone, you could just go ahead and create a new one. And we're going to change it from param1 to param3, and we're going to change it from num1 to num2, or whatever you decide to put in as the temp variable. Now, I didn't mention this on the first one, but the end behavior and the interpretation style can be left as default. And you can play with these, you can do whatever you want. We will go through the other things that we need to do as far as when you need to change those when we get there. But for right now, don't worry about it. Now that we have that done, let's go ahead and create another section. Like I've done before, I like to keep things looking tidy, so I'm going to do another skip action with an end action sequence and make it look all nice and pretty. And we're going to go in to check more variables. Now, when we check these variables, what we're pretty much doing is making sure the parameter for the second, the value of the second parameter is a math function. So we're going to make sure it does equals. We're going to do quotation marks. We're going to do the plus symbol. And go ahead and just copy that over a few times. Because now that we have the plus, we're also going to want to do it for the minus. We're also going to want to do it for the, We're also going to want to do it for the multiply, or the star symbol. We're also going to want to do that for the divide, or your backslash, or your forward slash, or whichever way you're looking at it, because I always forget the two, which one's which. Ignore that. Anyway, now that we have that done, we're going to need to actually build the commands themselves. So let's go ahead and create a jump to action. Now, before I get too far, let me explain what this jump action is for, if I can find it. Jump to action. Now, this jump to action is actually if it doesn't match any of these. because this is checking the second command parameter to be a plus, minus, times, divide. If it's not one of those four, I'm going to have it jump to a message down at the bottom, and that message is actually going to tell you, hey, you need to use one of these symbols. And when we get to this, we're actually going to change a lot of these check variables to actually jump to actions. I've been leaving it as the continue actions and stop if actions, or stop action sequence if false, because we didn't have a destination yet. I always like to build the core, what it's actually going to be doing first, and then worry about directing the traffic later. Sometimes it is more time consuming, but trust me, on bigger projects, it is way better to just go back over everything again when you're done for the jump actions, rather than trying to do it as you go and move one item and then break everything. Just like I said, I practice as I preach. So I have the jump action to go down to another message later, and because we're not going to have everything touching, or that's just me because I'm anal. I mean, what? Don't judge me. Anyway, put in an action sequence there to separate everything out because it looks way prettier that way. And now that we have everything looking pretty, we're going to go into a little bit more into the actual math operation. So we're going to do the basic math operation. And we're going to want the first number to be the num1, or whichever you decided to call your first one. We're going to have the math operation be that. Num2, store in ants. Answer. I'm going to put ants, because I don't know what else I want to put there. So now that's our create for the basic math operation. Now we're going to need it to actually tell us what that answer was. So we're going to put in here your list of variables. So if you have the beta, you can go just insert temp variable. Number 1, insert temp variable param2, insert temp variable num2, insert variable ants. Now you can dress it up a little bit, put spaces in between so nothing's touching, and before that last one, go ahead and put a equal sign. So you're gonna want to do space equal space and create action. Now you can do an end action sequence here, clone it and move it down, or create a new one. And that way, when we do the subtraction, multiply, and divide, that they're all gonna be separated. Because otherwise, if we just had it continue the actions through, once it gets done adding the number and sending this message, it will then do the exact same thing, but with the subtraction, multiplication, and division. So now we need to put the end action sequence in there so it actually doesn't continue after we are done, more or less. So now what I'm going to do is start doing the directing of the commands. Because before we didn't put any of these actions in. So we're going to want to go all the way up to the first one. Now check parameters. If there are 3 parameters, we're going to want to jump to action 3. Why action 3? Because action 3 is the start of the store command parameters, where it's going to do store 1, store 2, store 3, skip 1, and we're going to go to check variable. Now when the check variable is done, it's pretty much checking to make sure it exists. If true, continue actions. If false, stop action sequence. Now we can change the stop action sequence to jump to another one down here to send a message, so we can, still keep it nice and tidy. But I'm going to leave it as the if false stop action. I'm just checking these other ones here. Make sure that if it is a number, it continues. That exists, continue. That exists, continue. Parse. Yep. See? There's a reason why we go back and check things, because I realized that I am missing a command. We're going to copy the command type after the parameter here, and we're going to check if number 2 is indeed a number. Now, we should be good to go. And yes, so now that we had everything checked there, it's going to go down to skip actions, and it's going to skip down to the check variables, where these check variables are actually checking to make sure the function is a function that's usable. Well, we're going to start doing a quick test to make sure the addition works. So if true, we're going to want it to jump to action. But what action number is it? 23? Basic Math Operation Addition. All right. Whoop, wrong line. We're going to go to 23. And if false, end action sequence. Now, we're not going to worry all about the specifics quite yet because we still don't have a destination for half of the other commands. But let's go ahead and save and do a quick trial run and see if it's working yet. Command is math. Let's do 5 plus 7. Enter. 5 plus 7 equals 12. Boom. The addition is working. So now we know that all the code is there. What we're going to do now is finish the rest of the bot and make sure that it actually has everything where it needs to be for it to function correctly on the subtraction, multiplication, and division as well. So let's go ahead and copy the basic math operation, because for the most part it is going to be the same. And that's what makes it kind of nice if you have the option to copy and paste, because pretty much all of the hard work's already done for us. All we got to do is change the operation type to subtraction. Still going to be the answer, because the other parameters are still staying the same, and we don't have to even change the send message. We more or less just need to copy and paste the math operation over and change it to the other math methods or functions or whatever you prefer to call it as, because some people are really finicky that way and I don't know why. And almost done here. All right, we're going to change this from subtraction to multiplication and to division. All right, so now we have the 4 different math groups here, and now we're going to want to specify error messages, because there are going to be times where they're not going to enter in all 3 commands, or they're going to enter in things that are not numbers or the correct function or something along those nature, or those lines, I should say. Anyway, so let's go ahead and put in a error message. Please use. And if you go to the key on your keyboard to the left of the number 1, it should give you what looks like a your not the quotation mark, that's the dual. I am so sorry, I am having a brain fart. Either way, I keep wanting to say comma.
346 minutes later.
Anyway, it's going to be the key to the left of the number 1 on your keypad. Don't shift, just enter that, and then you can put in your command icon, and then it's going to be math, and then, you know, number, and then I like to do brackets for things that are going to be part of the command. So we're going to put in the different functions. So we're going to have plus, comma, minus, comma, and closing brackets. And then let's do another number, because I want people to know it's going to be number, one of those symbols, number. And then put that same little icon that we started it with, and then what that does is it actually will create like a bar. It's kind of like highlighting it in Discord. It's embossing it in a way, I should say. Either way, it makes it something that stands out a little bit more than just your basic message. So we're going to have that as our error message there. Let's go ahead and copy the end action sequence, because I still have a couple more error messages I want to put in. Let's go ahead and copy that message. And let's put in the... Let's see. I want this one to be specific for this second parameter. So let's go ahead and put second parameter. Oop. Isn't bum. Easy. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now, what that does is, like I said before, pretty much just makes it kind of pop out and emboss it as like where this right here is going to be a little bit more noticeable than the rest of the wording. So now we have that as your second message, and I think I need one more. Let's just be safe and create one more error message. And this message is going to be specifically stating that it's not a number. So, parameter 1 or 3 isn't a number. Now that we have it say that parameter 1 or 3 isn't a number, you can actually create two separate messages, and you can say the first parameter isn't a number, or the third parameter isn't a number. But you can just kind of consolidate the two because they are checking the same thing. But that is completely up to you. Now what we want to do is actually tell the bot where to send the traffic. So, on the first one, it is currently checking to see if there are 3 parameters. If so, it's going to jump to action 3. Great. Well, if it's false, I want it to send it to one of those error messages. So let's put in another jump action. And I want it to be, please use math number, function number. So let's go ahead and have it jump to that action number, which is 35. So 35. Boom. And now that it's done there, we're going to have it check to make sure these variables exist. So let's go ahead and put in a jump to action. And in here, I want it to be 35 as well. And we're going to go pretty much through all of these and add a jump to action to pretty much all of them. We're putting this one as 39 since it's checking to make sure it's a number. And like on this one, 39 is the parameter 1 or 3 isn't a number. So we're going to go down here, check to make sure that parameter exists. We're going to put 35 in here again. And check variable. And jump to action, 35. And down here, this is checking to see if it's a number, so if not, 39. And then we're going to jump down here to the other actions where, if true, jump, if not, continue actions, because we still want it to search for the other functions. So just because it's not plus doesn't mean we want it to stop completely. We want it to continue, so it'll check for the subtraction, multiplication, and division. Well, now that we have it checking for subtraction, we're going to have it jump to action and continue action. So jump to action. Which action number is that? That is 26. So we're jumping that to 26. Same with these. Jump to action, continue action. And what is that next number for multiplication? That is 29. Now after 29, we're going to go to the division, which is, just like the other ones, continue actions and jump to action. And this one has the basic math operation on action 32. Now that it checked all of those, let's say it wasn't any of those, we still want it to go and give us an error message. So now it's going to jump to action 37. And action 37 is more or less going to send the message the second parameter isn't plus, minus, times, divide. Done. Now, let's go ahead and do a quick beta test, because I want to make sure everything is working the way I want it to. So we're going to go back into Discord, and we're going to have, let's do command math, money times power, or money plus power, because I want to be an oil tyrant. Parameter 1 or 3 isn't a number. Oh, you got me there, Skippy. So let's go ahead and do math. And I want to do 10 plus 10. Ah, I didn't use the correct function. Okay, please use math number, one of those number. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do math 10 plus 10. All right, so it gave us, please use this. Now, why did it give us that? Because if you look, that is correct. It did 10 plus 10 on math. That should be totally fine, right? Well, let's go back and do a quick debug and make sure we didn't miss anything. So now we have it going where we had 10 plus 10. So let's see here. Ah, look, there's something here that doesn't quite match. That's this check variable right here. So if we check parameter 3, jump to 35. Well, that's if it's true. Well, I don't want it to jump to 35 if it's true. I want it to continue actions and jump to action and go to 35 if it's wrong. So you have to be very careful in paying attention to how you have your continue actions and jump to actions placed, because it does matter. So now if I were to save it and update it, everything should work correctly. So we go back down here, you do your math, 10 plus 10 gives us 20. We can do 10 minus 10. Whoop, hey, I need to do math. Math, 10 minus 10 should give us 0. Now we do a math, 10 times 10 gives us 100. And math, 10 divided, divided by 10 should equal 1. As you can see, all of the commands are working for the different types of math functions, and you kind of get to see everything that the command parameters really hold on to. So as we can see going back into Discord Bot Maker, you could see that the parameters are holding on to not just the value, but its place in that value. So you can do some pretty crazy things with command parameters. So if you want to have the bots store a specific line out of a message, or you want the bot to send a message, you can get pretty creative with it. Now, there are things, if you want the bot to send the message, you can have it store the command parameters, and then actually, let's just go through that quick, because I didn't cover that in this. So let's go to the command being just say. I want the bot to say something. So we're going to go into your other stuff, and we're going to go to store command parameters, and we're going to choose multiple parameters. And we're going to want to choose the starting point. I want it to be everything after what I say, after the command function, or I'm sorry, after the command, I want everything after that to be what the bot says. So we can just store it to say this. However, that only posts directly to the channel you sent it on. If I want to be able to put it into a admin only chat, and I want the bot to then send the message to another channel, for example, I want it to start at the second point, because I want the first one to be the mentioned channel. So now we have multiple parameters after the second one. So let's go ahead and now we're going to have the command parameter just pretty much send a message, say this. So now if I were to save it, let's go to Discord. And I want to say at general eat my shorts. The bot would say eat my shorts. And you can change in Discord Bot Maker on the send message action. You can choose to have it send to the same channel or to the mentioned channel, or even to the mentioned user if you want it to be a private message specifically to the mentioned person. So you can have that second parameter pretty much go for, or I'm sorry, you can have that first parameter pretty much go to whoever or wherever you want to. You just need to make sure that you have it choose multiple parameters starting after the first one. Because if you have it set for the first one, it'll also send the hashtag general or the @mentioned user. So you just have to be courteous and cautious of that. And if you want to get extra fancy, you can even have it do a delete message afterwards, which I'll cover in other videos going forward. I've already spent a lot of time on this video today. I know this was not one of my quicker videos, but we did cover a lot with command parameters and checking variables. If you thought this video was helpful, please leave a comment, leave a like, lets me know how I'm doing. It's free to you, it means the world to me. And if you have any other suggestions or things you would like to see, please feel free to leave those in the comments as well, or feel free to join my Discord down in the description below.